Hi, my name is Kim Thomas. I'm with the University of Oklahoma. I am a senior technology strategist, and I'll tell you a little bit about what that means here in a second. I'm also an adjunct professor in our MIS environment, so I'm actually teaching a class there. And so this was a proof of concept that we did with that group as well, so a little bit about that. And it'll be kind of practical use, and I will open it up for questions a little bit later, and I will dig into it a little bit more if you have any questions, and you can reach out to me if you have any questions at all. All right. See, my project management world. I've only been in higher education for about 2 years. I've worked in corporate America for about 20 years doing consulting, so that's where my background is, so that's where I come from. So we're going to do a little introduction. I'm just going to introduce myself. I will tell you, we'll do a little icebreaker. This is going to be interactive for you to get your liquor later, so it has to be interactive, so you got to work with me. So we'll talk a little bit about the overview of the pilot project, of what we did, what was the issue, what were we trying to fix, what technology is being used, what the results were, what we learned from that, and then lessons learned, and then if you have any questions, we can dig into those. Any questions? All right. So I have to tout the University of Oklahoma. Phenomenal football team. Doing a great job, doing a wonderful, have a wonderful, beautiful campus. So if you haven't come to Oklahoma, there's a great reason to come to Oklahoma and see us. So it's a great, beautiful place. A little bit about me. I am, as you can tell, I love to travel. So I love to travel. My husband is also a photographer, so we love to go across the United States, abroad, do a little bit of everything, do a lot of travel. I am a senior technology strategist, and really what that means is that we are kind of the relationship managers with different academic areas, and so that's how I got involved with the College of Business. They are one of my customers, and I worked really closely with them, and so that we were able to work with them very closely and do this proof of concept with them to kind of identify if tablets were going to work in the College of Business, and so we'll dig into that a little bit more. A little bit about what a senior technology strategist does. Like I said, we kind of connect those dots across the campus, working with all the different academic departments as well as other areas across campus. So it gives us the ability to kind of share knowledge and work together. So we're not reinventing the wheel, and we're not spending public dollars where we don't need to. So we want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. So our primary mission is really to build that team and that relationship with the different academic areas, and we work really closely with the deans and being that kind of that strategic partner. So you're starting to see that happen more often in the higher education world, and so that's been happening in the corporate world for a very long time. So connecting IT and business and kind of working together, and so that's really what my role is. And the extra part is the adjunct professor, which is always kind of fun just to get involved in the students' environment. So it's really fun. So, question. This is the interactive part. So, what do you think innovation is? Yeah.
I think innovation is a novel solution to important problems.
Awesome. Excellent. Anybody else? Yeah. Excellent. That could be there as well. Anybody else? Well, you guys hit it. I don't believe I had that one. But it's a new idea, device, a method, an actor, process, or introducing new ideas, devices, or methods. It's an iterative approach, so doing something new. It may be just a little bit different than it was before. So that's something that there may be something out there doing something similar, but this is just a minor change to that. So that's kind of the precipice of innovation. So change, alteration, revolution. So really changing the world. And so with College of Business, we were really trying to make trying to find something a little bit different, trying to figure out what would allow our students to be very interactive and to have the ability to have faculty members work very interactive with our students. So the pilot, what was the issue we were trying to solve? So we were trying to test with the use of tablets with the School of Business, MIS specifically. We wanted to do less lecture, less of this type of stuff, and more interactive things, so more student engagement. Ease of use, we wanted to be able to use multiple different applications, make it really easy for the students to be able to use, but also to take it and do some things beforehand, before they came into classroom, and have the ability to do that. We wanted to identify what types of software they would be able to use in business, or even in engineering. They're a little bit different. In College of Business, it's going to be more of the productivity tools, some of the things that you get in Office 365, and that kind of thing. We'll talk about those in a second. How easy is it to interact with a professor? And so I'll talk a little bit about some tools and apps that we used in that environment. We wanted to be able to install some of our applications very easily. We were actually doing some of that. The students were actually doing the installs during the classroom, so that was something that we learned from that as well. We wanted interaction during the class. We wanted to be able to share and put the student screen up on the screen itself. If they were showing something that they completed, we wanted to be able to share that and put it up on the screen at the same time. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the technology we used. So the technology we used, the students had to install the tools and validate a solution. We used SAP, so we installed the SAP GUI on these little tablets that I've got right here. So it's a Dell Venue tablet, a Tablet Pro 11. They had to install Windows 8.1 on there as well. They actually had access to Office 365 and the productivity tools that are included in that as well. We used OneNote for the Classrooms Creator, so that would allow us to integrate with there is a new version of there is a OneNote for Teachers, which is phenomenal, great way to interact. You can import the students into the notebook. They would have access to their individual worksheet, and then they can share that worksheet with the professor or the lecturer and have the ability to show that. And that was all done online. It's done through Office 365. It's very easy to be able to integrate very easily through that. One thing that we did use, and I think someone else talked about this earlier, Action Tech, using the educational wide-eye. So I would suggest Wide-Eye Pro is the thing that you want to use more frequently. It's one thing you can lock down. Kind of the Wide-Eye Miracast functions are really good, but the students have the ability to put anything up on the screen, whether you want them to or not. With the Action Tech Wide-Eye, we were able to do a notification to the student that says, here's the code that will get you into the screen to display your information. So that was something that we looked at doing. The Splash Top Streamer, and that was more of a collaboration tool, didn't work as well as we wanted it to. So that was something that that we found as a lesson learned that didn't work as well as we would have liked it to. We integrated with our D2L, as well as Qualtrics. So we did surveys through the class. We actually did those online in class during interaction. I taught this class, so it was something that we were able to show. We used the tools themselves, the venues themselves during class. They were able to take them home, and then they were able to integrate in the classroom while we did use the OneNote workbooks. And then they also had access to SAP, which we have a digital alliance with, which was the ability to go off and do data from there and information from there as well. So they had all that information. They had to make sure they downloaded everything. They had to get everything set up. So this is actually a good opportunity to do collaboration, teamwork, and have the ability to kind of interact and be able to install things on their machines, work through troubleshooting any issues that they may have found, and that was something that we learned from that as well. So how did we measure success? So we wanted to measure the success by looking at the practical use within the classroom. Were we able to use it in the classroom? We used that through classroom observation to validate that the students were actually using it. Did they have their own laptop and they used that instead of using the venue? Were they able to interact and use the tool easily? Were they able to load things up on the screen when we wanted them to? And that was one of our measures. We also did a survey, and we actually got results and feedback, and about 95% of our students turned in information. It was not required. It was not a required thing that they had to do. And then the percentage of students using the tablets during the class. So we wanted to just check and see if they actually were given the tablets. Did they bring it in? Did they actually use it in the classroom? Were they able to do their exercises while we were doing them within the class? Because this was a lab-based class. And so we would do the measurement through that as well. So lessons learned. So students and faculty are going to be kind of two different points of view. So our students, they would have liked to have more robust keyboard. I have a little bit thicker keyboard that you can use here, but they had a very light keyboard. They had issues using some of the Bluetooth mouse. We made those available to them as well. The Bluetooth uses the same information when you're connecting it to your tablet. So when everybody was doing that at the exact same time, you kind of step on each other's toes, so that was a good lesson learned. You also wanted the wide-eye projection. It did prove a little bit cumbersome because you had to quote the number to them. So when you're using any of the wide-eye, you have to have the IDs to load information back up on the screen. Same thing with Apple TVs, a little bit of everything. All have to give the code to be able to project up onto the screen. Faculty and IT. The one thing that I thought was a lesson learned that I think makes a lot of a big change here. You may want to install some of the major, more difficult software easier. You want to have those done a little bit beforehand. You want to be able to track and clean up when they're returned, so that'll be easier. I would love to use VDI, and that's one thing we're going to do in this next semester. So VDI to install and use the tools that way. It makes it much easier to download. Engage the faculty earlier. So if there were things that you needed to build into that workbook, it takes a little bit of time to get things set up. So you want to make sure you've got everything set up, you've got all your displays set up correctly, and you've also got all your students loaded, and each one of them have their own workbook. So that takes a little bit of time, so you want to do that probably a couple of months before the classes start. Summertime's a great time to be able to do that and prep for the fall. Over the Christmas holiday, that's great for the spring sessions as well. So our survey results. We had several of the students. So how was the tablet used? So many of the students we had, this was a interactive class. They had to do team assignments, and they had to collaborate with other folks within the team. So they were able to use that for presentation in the classroom. They could actually take the tablet up. They would do presentations with that. They'd use it as their projection up onto the screen, but also to look at and prep for presentation. So if they had questions about notes that they had associated with that they wanted to look at, they could look at that from a tablet. A little bit easier than doing that with a laptop. They were able to use that for the exercises. So that is that red. And in SAP, it's a very labor-intensive tool. The GUI is a fairly old application. A little bit small for the venues here. There is a larger screen that might be a little bit better, but you can also project onto a monitor, and you could do that as well. So we actually had the students do that as well. A lot of the students did use this for personal use, and we didn't tell them they couldn't use it for personal use. You could use it for anything they wanted to as well. And then they used it in other classes, so we had several students that said they were able to use it. Most of the students that come to the University of Oklahoma have their own either laptop or tablet. But there were some that did not, and so they had the ability to use this within their other classes, which is great. And they had access to, they were actually a pilot group who also tested out our Office 365 before it was rolled out to the rest of the campus. So that was something they were able to use before anybody used it before them as well. So that was actually, they got to do several things within that pilot. The device use, so the blue, so a couple had their own devices. We did not stop them from using their own device. We said that's fine. They would rather use their laptop, so the red is in that pie chart, not too terribly many of that. They liked the tablet. They thought it was very interactive, easy to use. It was something they would use going forward, and we're using these the students had to turn these tablets back in, and then they're using them in multiple classes going forward. All right, I feel like I'm going really, really fast. So, a couple of next steps. So for this fall, we're going to test the tablets with 2 database classes in MIS, and they have a workbook that will be built in the OneNote for teachers, and they will create that workbook with the details that are associated with the database classes, so the BRDs that they'll build, the exercises that they will review, as well as answers and some of the questions, and they'll be able to interact within the class and display that up onto the screen during the class. So that if I wanted to show a student's workbook, I could do that with Office 365 and the OneNote for Teachers application. Really cool tool if anybody hasn't ever used it. It's a phenomenal tool. Easy to use, the students love it, and you can look at their information very much like Google Apps. If you were in here previously before in the other session, works very much like the Google Apps. You have the ability to update at the same time. You don't step on each other's toes. It tracks who's updating information. The colors are maybe not as easy to see, but it is very interactive, and you have the ability to see who's updating things as well. All right, the request, well, I didn't do that. Request assistance with a mobile tool that would allow us to install applications beforehand. So, Service Center, any of those tools, some of those tools would be great for use going forward. Getting additional keyboards, I think that would be maybe some of the thicker keyboards. These folks use day in and day out, they use the keyboards to do exercises, so it would be easier to do a little bit thicker keyboard. And so that's one thing we're looking at doing it as well. Delivery of tablets early to the students, so we want to make sure we get those to the students before the school starting, so they will get these probably 2 weeks before class starts in August, and they'll have the ability to download, make sure everything's been downloaded, everything's available, any installs that they want to do previously, or any additional installs they want to do, they can do those as well. Any questions? Awesome, look at that. That was exactly on time. Yes?
Do you, when the students get this early,
Uh-huh.
do you go through any kind of orientation, take to learn how to leverage the OneNote?
Yep. Yes. Good question, and I didn't put that in here. We originally had to show students how to use 8.1 as well, so they had to do kind of a little short overview of that. We also had some quick reference guides that kind of walk them through how they use the tool. For OneNote, it's pretty intuitive, so we did it in the first session of class and talked a little bit about how the session worked and how do they log on and get into it. And they were able to put in their information about, at the first day class, we asked what their name was, how best to reach them, how do they want to be connected, how do they want to have conversation back and forth, and that was one of the things we put in the OneNote worksheets, and everybody had the ability to see that and share that information. So usually you probably want to do a little bit beforehand to make sure everybody's comfortable with 8.1 if they're using that. OneNote you probably do the first day. Yep. Yep. There's nothing that says you couldn't do both, to do either or. I think we went with this one because we were able to get a grant and get about 50 tablets to be able to test out and make sure that it was the best option. I think the reason why we stepped with the Windows specifically for MIS was because most of the applications they use are Windows-based. For engineering the same way, they'll probably stick with kind of a Windows tablet. But for architecture and from our law groups, they're using the Apples. And we use both. We have both on campus. Yes?
So do you know the cost for the students, cost for the school?
It was.
Both direct costs and also cost related to support?
So these were both, these were free to us for testing out. So there was no cost to the students. Yeah.
So that's your first year.
Uh-huh.
I assume that this program continues.
So for rolling out for other students, we probably will hold off on rolling out these specific tablets, but I do have some information for dollars that I can share with you. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
How much training did you do for faculty and how to incorporate these tablets?
So the two folks who are going to be doing it in this next session, this session it was me, so it was my group, so I was able to train myself and work on that and work with our partners from Microsoft. We've got two folks that are going to be doing the transition for this next semester, and we've spent probably a week helping them set up their OneNote workbook, and it's a pretty robust Microsoft Word workbook that she created. It's about a 35-page workbook. So we've got that imported. We've worked with them for about a week to get it installed, make sure it was set up correctly within the notebook itself. It's about a week of kind of getting them up to speed. The other thing you'd want to make sure would be access points, because everybody's actually logging in and getting in at the same times. This is in the cloud, so it's pretty a little labor intensive, but these are not labor intensive tools other than probably the SAP GUI. So, any other? Yeah.
If you would have had to pay for it, do you feel like it would have been better than your prior solutions?
You know, I think so. I think it's a good, there is a good return on investment. I think the students were very excited about it. They were happy to have a application to use in the classroom. For those of folks who don't have a laptop, it was a great use. There was a good return on investment. I think people were able to use the tools. And they're going to make recommendations to use a tablet going forward. It's a little bit cheaper for folks going forward. For students, if they were wanting to purchase something, they may not have to get a laptop. Or you don't have to use a desktop to do that as well. So the benefit was definitely there. Any other questions? Yes?
The wireless projection,
Uh-huh.
like it said it didn't go very well, but we
Mhm.
are planning to use that again to make it smoother.
We are. In fact, they're continuing to make improvements to that tool. So Action Tech has an educational version of that. And I think they've refined it enough so that that it seems to be getting better. And they've been making changes based on feedback from us, from multiple people as well, because I think it's something that you're starting to see more and more folks. They want to be able to project upon the screen. It worked fairly easy. It's just when you're trying to get students to say, okay, here's the number, and the number keeps changing. So that would be the only thing that was a little bit different is that if you may have one person who was projecting and it was 1, 2, 3, 4. The next person who's going to project maybe a different number, and just communicating that number to them. So that was only a little bit cumbersome thing. It's cumbersome for the faculty member to be able to turn that information around. Minimal IT support. The one thing that I would do would be an SCCM tool where you could roll out things fairly fast, and that's something we don't have currently. So, yes? Yeah. Well, and that's the good thing about this, but I like the ability to see everybody who's ready to put something up on the screen, and you could actually visually see what they're going to potentially put up, and you can do that within the notebook, so you could actually see online what it's going to look like. and be able to say, okay, oh, I want Jimmy's information because I want to show he's not quite read, hadn't got quite on it, or hadn't figured out the exercise, and we want to go into it a little bit deeper there. So, excellent. There's my information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Kim Thomas, 1@ou.edu. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything. All right. Thanks, everyone. Now you can go have your liquor.